Have you ever wondered what Dark Souls 4 could look like? Don't lie, of course you have. Now what if I told you there's a mod so ambitious, so massive and content rich, that your dream of a Dark Souls 4 might just be attainable? That's exactly what we're here to discuss, because I had one of the best gaming experiences in quite some time. That game, or mod to be exact, is Dark Souls Archthrones, and it's truly a diamond in the rough. Come take this journey with me and I'll tell you everything that makes this such a special piece in the puzzle of Soulsborne, one that all die-hard From Software fans need to experience. And yeah, all this praise, and it's still only a demo. Archthrones is a full overhaul mod for Dark Souls 3, taking place before the apocalyptic fading of the flames seen in the base game. Lothric and Lordran are entrenched in war, and you, the emissary, must hunt down the gods of yore. You'll visit locations old and new to gather souls to link the fire once more in a grand new journey. One glaring feature you'll notice right off the bat is that this is not the Dark Souls 3 you know. This mod takes heavy inspiration from Demon Souls of all places. It's obvious instantly as your first encounter is with the Vanguard Demon. After your swift death, you're brought to a reimagined hub world, mending together Firelink Shrine from Dark Souls 3 and my beloved Nexus from Demon Souls. It's really refreshing having the Nexus back. The non-linear progression available is a much needed feature that all of the games aside from Elden Ring have blatantly lacked since Dark Souls 1. Familiar faces like Andre and the Firekeeper are here, but also some callbacks to Demon Souls, like a new and improved version of Stockpile Thomas. Another thing you'll notice when you first run through the Nexus is the quality of the fully voiced NPCs littered throughout. Every single one has a unique voice actor, and many even have their own quests and item rewards, even in the demo. It's a breath of fresh air to have a whole new cast of characters filling up the hub, and there are way more out in the lands of Lothric to bring back here too. The hub is awesome, but it's only the start of your journey. Just like with Demon Souls, though you can access all 5 areas minute 1 of the game, it's highly advised not to go to the higher scaling zones until properly leveled. But hey, if you want to chip away at these bosses like Sisyphus with your stone, they give you that choice. Most advised first is the Archstone of the Bountiful Queen, and the War-Torn Village. The first big takeaway will either be the sheer beauty of this reimagining of the undead settlement, or the profound spike in difficulty. Archthrones is hard, so getting your feet wet and clawing your way to gathering every last soul is essential for any amount of success. I won't give a step-by-step walkthrough of each area because there's so many wonderful surprises littered all throughout, but a few of the design choices need to be discussed for you to understand the scope of this mod and why I'm making a video on it. In the War-Torn Village, you'll instantly recognize new and familiar enemies, but not all is what it seems. One of this mod's biggest selling points is its fusion of every single FromSoft game. Yes, Bloodborne and Sekiro too. From the common soldier to the deadliest boss, you never know what moveset is going to be used. One of the most fun aspects of playing this mod is being able to pick up on and recognize attacks you may not have seen in years, but knowing them all the same. Take one of the first bosses you can meet for example. The pus-ridden beast has the frame and model of the cleric beast from Bloodborne, which is cool enough on its own. Mix that iconic design with the Dark Souls 3 Pus of Man aesthetic, being a massive callback to Manus, and it's an amazing first impression to the depth of callbacks and ingenuity on display in Archthrones. His second phase totally blindsided me, turning into one of my number 1 most infuriating bosses, Lawrence from the Old Hunters. But honestly, they tastefully recreated the overall moveset of Lawrence, and made it much more manageable and fun to dance with. This is just one of the many bosses that stand out in the early and late game of Archthrones. In the War-Torn Village alone, there's 4 bosses, from the Tower Knight wannabe Angelic Siege Golem to the brutal duo Crucible Knight inspired Angel of Gertrude. It has everything. Most of the boss's souls could also net you brand new, completely original, and really cool boss weapons when transposed. Now, one of the more interesting ideas presented with Archthrones is the mix of Sekiro into the move pool. And I think with that, it's time we discuss one of the most appealing aspects of the mod, and that's the return to and redemption of 2 of the best areas from Dark Souls 2. If you ever heard of Archthrones before, or even seen a YouTube thumbnail for it, you know all about the reimagined Hyde's Tower of Flame, being a near unanimously agreed incredible area in the not so incredible Dark Souls 2. Here we see it in its full glory. The reason I bring this up directly after mentioning Sekiro is that the Hyde's Tower, now renamed to Phoenix Tower, is the premier Sekiro influence zone in this mod. The Hyde Knights in particular being deflect machines, to the point of using anything other than a greatsword will have you constantly being on the back foot in your duels with them. Phoenix Tower is peak design. It does what Bluepoint wanted to do with Demon Souls Remake, but failed to accomplish. It takes a beloved area from an older title and breathes new life into it, while still keeping the original intent and atmosphere. That atmosphere is now turned on its head. Where the enemies were always oppressive, now the weather is too. The dark skies are opposed by the bright red flame and embers taking over the sky in the tallest tower. With all the new gameplay elements and a reworked skybox, the familiar terrain is stoked with new life as you explore this old stomping ground. Every little callback like this is what makes your exploration that much more interesting, and I never found myself bored or lost in my adventures through the worlds. Out of the 5 available Archthrones, the most unique one and fully original sandbox, pun intended, is Carthus. Another place referenced ad nauseum in the base game. Now we get to traverse its dunes ourselves. If you didn't feel the mod creators' love for Demon Souls before, you absolutely should now, because this is now only the second entry in Souls history to have a desert level, only preceded by Demon Souls itself. This really hammers home the need for biome change in the mainline FromSoft games, because the desert just feels so fresh and unique. Though not massive, the wide open sandfields make for such a fun trek, and a much needed detour from the otherwise grim lands of Lothric. And who could forget Shai Hulud himself, who of course makes an appearance here, adding to the grandiosity of it all. Now, I won't show the inside of it here, but what they did with the Cathedral of the Deep is truly breathtaking. It feels ripped straight from Yharnam, and their love for Bloodborne shines right through here most of all. Just the outside areas here scream Forbidden Woods, even if they aren't changed much from the vanilla game. But it goes to show how important lighting could be to set a vibe. All the reworked areas blow their original counterparts out of the water, from a set piece and aesthetic standpoint, at least for me. I was starstruck more often than I imagined I'd be. Hey, maybe adding some color to Dark Souls 3 isn't a bad idea after all, you know? There will be a 6th Archstone in full release, which is an incredibly exciting thought. And on top of that, the devs have come out and said that only the first areas of each stone are included in the demo, meaning the full release will be absolutely massive, closer to the scale of the vanilla experience, if not larger. It feels so close to complete already, and I can't imagine the size it'll be one day. I won't divulge too much more into the specifics, because this is something I really want you to play for yourself. My favorite part was that new feeling of discovery I've been missing since the Shadow of the Erd Tree. But there are some more cool things about this mod that I love too. The new armor and weapons were such a hit for me. The drip here is immaculate, and captures the aesthetic of Dark Souls, but with their own spin on it. And the drop rates seem pretty high by default too. Not sure if it's just to show off all the new stuff in the demo, but I was bombarded with new armor constantly. And the armor was actually more helpful than not, though I still played Fashion Souls first and foremost. The weapon classes are also rebalanced, and they added some features painfully missing from the base game, like power stancing and guard counters. Another great addition ripped from Elden Ring of all places is their own version of the Wondrous Physic. This time, it's a brew on the go type of system, using drops you find around the world to combine and make for some really neat effects. It's a real game changer for certain builds, and can give you some absurd damage levels to level the playing field. I honestly felt hollow going back into Dark Souls 3 without the quality of life upgrades I got so used to over the last 12 hours. It was like a phantom pain that only Archthrones could remedy. Now of course, I can't just glaze the entire time. And even though this isn't a review by any means, I'd love to give some critiques that I came upon during my overall amazing experience. Keep in mind it's still only a demo, and surely some of these things are already changed by now. But alas, I'd like to give my 2 cents. The only glaring issue I had was the weird fusion of certain bosses' attacks with Dark Souls 3's slower mechanics. While Dark Souls 3 is quick compared to its predecessors, it could feel like molasses when juxtaposed to the other 3 games that Archthrones pulls from. Sekiro is the real culprit here. Many bosses can be so quick, using attacks very much meant for the perfect deflect, that I found rolling them to be a real pain at times. Similar to my first blind through of Lies of P before I got it. Don't get me wrong, the spectacle and creativity of a boss switching between Sekiro and Elden Ring attacks is so awesome. It can be overwhelming more times than not. The only Elden Ring specific attacks that were annoying were the Godfrey and Radagon ground smashes, which the lack of jumping really hurt the boss quality. The Bloodborne attacks are fine, thankfully, being balanced for quick steps rather than deflects or jumps, but none of this makes it unplayable by any means. Some polish on the final product is definitely needed, and I'm positive they're aware of this too. Balancing is one of the toughest things to get right in any game, and demo feedback is going to sculpt the final release for sure. Upgrades could also be a bit scarce here, severely limiting how many new weapons you could try out in the late game, but it seems to be more of a demo issue rather than a core problem with the game. It's more of a compliment than anything, because they added so many cool and unique weapons, boss drops especially, that I'd love to try them out for all more than the starting areas. I'm not expecting to max level more than a few, but some more Titanite could go a long way for sure in a comprehensive overhaul. Along with upgrades, bosses absolutely need to drop more souls, because not only are the shops quite expensive, but these enemies hit like a truck if you can't level quickly. I could go on and on about some bugs I experienced and some few odd design choices, but it would be screaming into the void. Don't think I haven't seen the toxic sludge of Nexus Mod's comments and complaints. There's so much to patch and fix, but I have faith that this incredibly talented mod team will be working their absolute hardest to ensure the best product. In the end, it's only a demo, but my god does the passion just bleed through every inch of the worlds they've created. This is the work of a team that clearly adores the franchise and wants nothing more than to do justice to the lore, aesthetic, and game direction Miyazaki's been perfecting for decades. I can't forget to mention that it's completely free, and aside from donations, the mod team is doing all this for the love of the craft. Even the install is quick and painless, and the constant devlogs and updates being posted on Twitter show that they aren't going anywhere or abandoning a thing. Archthrones left a huge impression on me, clearly enough for me to make a whole video on it. Honestly, it really surprised me to see how little videos and content there is about it. A few big creators touched on it, but nothing since the demo dropped a year ago. I'm making this video here to implore you to check it out if you're looking for that Souls fix. I sure know I was. It's a perfect way to hold you over until the release of Nightreign, and when this fully releases, you already know I'll be right there to give it another whirl. Moral of the story, play Archthrones, support these guys, and spread the word, because mods like this are what keep the community alive. And come on, you know you want to come back to Hyde's Tower of Flame. Don't lie to yourself. Thank you.